Hello everyone. Hope you are having a nice day today. If you're at work, if you're home, wherever you are, I hope you had a nice day or you're having a nice day. So it's been a while, it's been like a month since I lastly posted something. And the last time I was here, the last video I posted, I was with another doctor and we had a great time. We were talking on breastfeeding, we were talking on the importance of breastfeeding and removing some myths around breastfeeding. So after this video, I had some questions from people, and also in my practice as a general practitioner, I've had this come up several times. So I decided to do a video on it, and I hope that by the end of this video we are going to learn something or it's going to help someone. So today we are going to be talking about weaning our children. That is to say, how to introduce semi-solid food to our babies. So the first thing I would like to say about weaning, the word weaning means to introduce semi-solid food to a child who has been feeding just on milk. That's either breast milk or they have been mixed fed with breast milk and artificial feeding. That's what it means to wean a child. First of all, the first thing I would like to say is it's recommended by WHO, which we said in the last video we did on breastfeeding, that a child should be exclusively breastfed up to 6 months of age. And we gave the importance of breastfeeding, of why we should breastfeed our children up to 6 months. But then we also understand that some circumstances can arise and you may not be able to breastfeed your baby up to 6 months. So in cases like this, it is advisable that if you're not able to breastfeed exclusively for 6 months because of valid reasons, you can introduce artificial milk to a child. But it is not recommended to start to give semi-solid food. When I say semi-solid food, I mean maybe pap or mashed food, some potatoes, okra, whatever mothers usually give to children, because mothers usually feel that the breast milk is not enough. So it is advisable to only start to introduce semi-solid food or foods to a child after 6 months, because before 6 months your child's immunity is not strong enough to be able to fight off some infections that we have from introducing food, and their immunity, their digestive system is not also well developed to be able to digest food itself. So it is important that we note that please do not give your children semi-solid food before 6 months. It is not recommended. Some parents will tell you that the child is not getting full by 4 months. No, breast milk is enough up to 6 months. It meets the child's requirement for feeding up to 6 months. So now if your child is 6 months or maybe your child is getting to 6 months and you're preparing to wean the child, I'm going to bring you some advice on how to ease this process. Because another problem that we usually have in the hospitals is mothers complaining that children don't like food, they don't want to eat, they want to keep breastfeeding, they don't want to take the food that they are giving to them. Usually it is important to understand as a parent that your child is used to breast milk or milk for 6 months. Even as adults, we usually don't like change, so you need to be patient while trying to teach or introduce your child to semi-solid food. It's not going to be a very easy procedure, but you need to be patient. You need to keep trying until when the child gets used to eating food alongside their breast milk that you'll be giving them or the milk that you'll be giving them. So when you're trying to introduce your child to semi-solid food, first of all, you need to realize that there are some signs that a child is going to show that you will know that they are ready to start taking semi-solid food. One of those things is your child will be able to sit with support. If your child is not sitting with support, please do not be hasty to give them semi-solid food, and that is why it is recommended to start semi-solid food by 6 months, because in the growth of a child, in the development of a child, by 6 months most of them are able to sit with support. Like you can put the child to sit on the chair and they sit well because there is support behind them. The second thing that you notice when your child is ready to start feeding or to start taking semi-solid food is that their head lag is okay. That is to say that they are able to hold up their head for long. They can sit and hold their head up. We know that children usually, sometimes as in the early stages of life, they cannot support their head for long. But a child that is ready to start feeding will be able to support their head for a full meal. And this usually happens again around 6 months. Thirdly, you're also going to notice that if your child is ready to start feeding, they are aware of their hands. They can stretch their hands to receive something. They play with their hands. They are aware of their hands, and they are aware that they can use their hands to do something. So that's also a sign that your child is ready to get semi-solid food, and that also happens around 6 months. And lastly, you know that your child is ready to eat when they start to notice food. You notice that the child looks at the plate until the food enters your mouth. Sometimes they reach out their hands, sometimes they open their mouth, they stare at the food that you're eating. Those are signs that your child is ready to start taking semi-solid food. Now the next thing is, what do we do? How do you prepare for your child start taking semi-solid food? It's important that you get the child's own, maybe a bowl or a spoon. Children have the spoons that are adapted to them, because if you use the spoon of an adult, it might be difficult for the child to use, because it's deeper and it's bigger for a child's mouth, which is usually very small. So you need to get the child's own food, the child's own plate, and then it's spoon that is adapted for children. And also it's important to get a high table. They sell them in supermarkets all around. Get a high table for the child to sit in, so that you can spoon feed the child if that's what you desire to do, and then you can adjust and look at what the child is doing while feeding the child. So if you get this ready, then you're ready to start giving your child semi-solid food. Now, there are a lot of foods out there that we can give our children. The most popular ones that I notice mothers giving is pap, which is well recommended at 6 months because it's semi-solid. And it's best also understand that you need to start with the semi-solid food before going to the solid food. For example, it's best to start with pap, Cerelac, those ones that the consistency is softer. Some people will start with pear, with fruits, because it's softer and the child can eat. They can swallow easily, and then you can gradually move to more solid foods that are harder, and then as the child is developing too, their teeth are developing for them to be able to mash on the food by themselves. And as I said before, you need to be patient while feeding your child. At the beginning, you need to look at what they are doing. You can experiment also by giving them. It's even recommended that when a child is beginning to learn how to eat, you allow them to touch the food and play with the food. What you need to do is supervise what they are doing. Or if you don't want it to be too messy, you can spoon feed the child so that they don't mess up everything. So another important thing that I would like to tell mothers is that children are not, you don't force the child to eat the quantity of food that you've placed in front of them. That could also be a reason why your child doesn't like food, because it's associated in their brains with being forced to eat everything. So you, as a parent, it is your responsibility to choose what your child is going to eat. But it is the child's responsibility to also decide on the quantity that they want to eat. It's important to know that the stomach size of a child is like the hand of the child, a fist. So their stomachs are quite small. So please do not force your children to eat everything in the plate. Usually when they will start eating, they'll eat 2 or 3 or 4 spoons, and if they start to turn their heads, look disinterested, then you should stop giving the food. Also, another thing you could do is put off the TV, limit the distractions, because children are easily distracted. If they are feeding and then there's cartoon going on, their minds will be on the cartoon, and so they will not feed as much as you want them. So when it's time to feed your child, you put them in a comfortable position. As I advise, you can get a high chair for your child so that they can sit in comfortably, instead of putting them on your lap where you need to constantly bend your head to see what they are doing. If the child is seated in a high chair, you can put opposite to you and look at what the child is doing. You put up the TV, you decrease the distractions so that the child is interested in what they are doing, in the food they are eating. And if once the child has eaten 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on the capacity of your child, When you notice that, you start to give, especially if the child was taking the food before and maybe he or she turns their head, or they refuse, they no longer want the food, because children are also aware, they have their stomachs to know when they are full. So please, parents, do not force children above what they want to eat. As they grow, gradually they begin to increase the quantity of what they want to eat. I know that in weaning a child is one of those difficult seasons for parents, because some children cry, some children refuse to eat. But as is advised, be patient and take one step at a time. At the beginning, if the child takes even 2 spoons, it's fine. You're introducing them. Introducing means that they're not going to just do it all at once. It's a learning process. They're also learning how to eat. And it's advisable that when you're trying to wean your child, give them food after they have eaten. Let's say if the child has breastfed in the morning, their afternoon or the meal that you have planned later, maybe 4 hours later, should be the semi-solid food you're introducing to them. It's usually best to introduce them at times when they are calm and they are not anxious. For example, don't wait for the afternoon when they are already anxious. It's best to introduce semi-solid food like at midday, when the child has eaten in the morning, like breastfed, that's what they like. When you're trying to introduce, you give them maybe at midday the semi-solid food, and then later you continue with their milk or their breast milk or the artificial milk if that's what you're giving. Gradually, you can increase the quantity while reducing the quantity of breast milk also. So the important thing I'm passing out in this video is that when you're introducing your child to semi-solid food, you have to be patient. It's not all going to happen at once. And then it's normal for them to have some weird facial expressions, because they are learning taste, they are learning different tastes, they've never eaten those things before. So don't give up if your child does a very weird facial expression in trying to introduce a particular semi-solid food. It's because they have never tasted that before. Their taste buds are surprised. But you need to be patient, you need to keep trying. Also, I think one of the turn-off, or what has been recommended, is that when the child is eating, don't continuously wipe their mouth. Just wait for the child to finish eating before you wipe their mouth at the end of the meal. It sure looks messy, but because the child is learning to eat, you have to just be okay with the mess for the moment. Because if you clean the child's mouth after every feed, it can also be irritating for the baby. So you can leave the baby with the food. At the end of the meal, then you clean their mouth, you clean them off completely. And also, mothers or parents are always worried that the child is not eating enough. I guarantee that if your child is growing well, if they are having energy to play, if they are not seated in one position, if they are playing well, they are growing well, then your child is actually eating well for their need. Because these are things that make parents to fret a lot, come to the hospital, ask what they can do, that the child is not feeding well. If your child is playing, it means that the food they are eating is giving them energy enough to be able to play. Usually, if a child is not feeding well, they are going to get malnourished. And one of the first things you notice in a malnourished child is that the child will just be seated in one place. It will not even have the energy to move around and play. So if your child has energy enough to move around and play, and they are growing normally, it shows that they are getting the requirements for their growth. So parents, be patient while trying to wean your child. The appropriate time to wean a child is at 6 months, because their digestive systems are ready. They themselves are mature enough to start to feed, and they're already interested in food. Usually when you introduce a child too early, they are going to have some maybe complications. Maybe the child is going to have diarrhea, or they're going to have some problems digesting the food because their digestive system is not mature enough. So if you're ready to wean your child, it's best to do so at 6 months. It's also best to get everything ready, and then be patient with the child as the child tries to learn how to be introduced to semi-solid food. Okay, I hope this was helpful. It was just some little tips that I was bringing to us. I hope this was helpful. I hope maybe it has helped a mom or a parent who is worried about their child. And if you have any questions, you can leave it in the comment section. Thank you very much. We're going to be coming up with more videos for you. You can like, you can share, you can subscribe. Okay, do have a blessed evening, a blessed day, a blessed morning. Thank you very much.